As I was preparing to add rocks to the scene, I wanted to make sure to avoid any rocks that were going to be open on one side, like the example that you saw in one of the previous videos. And so I checked each static mesh out by just double clicking on it in the content browser, and then by holding Alt on the keyboard and the left mouse button, it's possible to then easily orbit around the form and just make sure that it's enclosed and that you think it's an interesting rock to use. And once you've settled on the particular rocks that you'd like to use, you can then drag them up, just like we did with the tree, to the foliage painter slot here. And note that all of the boxes that have rocks in them, I've set to be checked, and I unchecked the tree so that we can just paint with the rocks. And now, let me go out to a place that I haven't yet painted. Now, when we drag across the landscape, it's going to randomly put in one of these 5 rocks for each of the instances. And I found it helpful while painting the rocks in to actually work from the point of view that the viewer will see everything. So I made sure to kind of stay low to the ground, and then actually use the brush from this location. And so I'm going to pause it at this point, and I'm going to add in some other elements to our foliage painter here. To add the myrtle bushes to the scene, I dragged up to the foliage painter bog myrtle bush 02 and bog myrtle bush 01, and then I unchecked the other boxes for the rocks, and I had to set the paint density up a bit higher to 0.025 in order to get these things to be clustered a bit more closely together. And then what I found was when I first started to paint the myrtle onto the scene that by applying it everywhere, it started to look very unnatural. So then I just started to more randomly place little sections of the myrtle out into the landscape, and I think that looks better, where there are some places where it is and some places where it is not. And I'm going to pause again and add some flowers. On my first pass adding the flowers into the landscape, I found that there were too many of these clumps of, what is that purple flower called? Heather. And so what I did was I thought of adding the flowers in terms of 2 passes. I made a rough pass where I had all of the flowers put together, and then what I did after that was I unchecked the heather and I just used the other type of flowers. I found that getting the other smaller ones to show up well required kind of getting pretty low to the ground, the same height that the viewer would see the project from. And so anyhow, I hope this was helpful in getting a sense of how to use the foliage painter.